Today we continue on with our NHL season preview series. We're starting with the Atlantic Division. Today we're taking a look at the Buffalo Sabres. They certainly look like they may have made a lot of improvements, but are they ready to move up the standings and contend? We'll discuss their season coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're taking a look at the Buffalo Sabres and what we should expect from them for the upcoming 22-23 NHL season. So in case you're new to this series, we're going to recap quickly what happened last year, take a look at their recent record, take a look at how this team has changed over the course of the offseason, so some key additions, key subtractions, look at some prospects that might jump into the lineup this year, have some impact, and then take a look at their projected roster and answer any questions we think are kind of, big important questions that the team needs to be able to look at going into the season. So first up, let's recap 21-22, which wasn't overly kind to the Buffalo Sabres. They finished in 5th place in the Atlantic Division with a record of 32, 39, and 11 for 75 points. They scored 232 goals for 22nd in the league, allowed 290 goals for 25th in the league, had a power play percentage of 21.2, which is respectable for 16th, so midway through the league. The PK was not great, 76.4 for 23rd best in the league. And of course, this team has not made the playoffs in 11 years. 2007 was the last time they've won a playoff series. So this fan base, I'm sure, is craving for playoff action. And we know that the Sabres, it feels like they've been rebuilding forever, almost had to start over a couple of times. But I think this time it feels like they're getting it right. They're certainly in a situation now where they've accumulated a lot of young talent, and it's a matter of now seeing if that talent is good enough and letting them grow and develop into star players, hopefully, which will take them to the next steps. Now, what steps are they going to take this season? We'll discuss that here throughout the video. Of course, this is Don Granato's the head coach. Kevin Adams is the GM. Granato will be in his 2nd season now behind the bench. So we'll see where things go. So far, things will be trending in the right direction. Now, let's take a look first though at how this team has changed over the course of this offseason. First, by looking at key subtractions. So which key players are no longer with the Buffalo Sabres organization. We've got Colin Miller on defense, Cody Eakin, veteran center, veteran goalie Aaron Dell, Mark Pysyk on defense, Will Butcher on defense, and Mark Jankowski, a forward centerman who's been up and down between NHL and AHL. So that's 6 players gone, but to be honest, not a lot of substance there. Colin Miller was a decent defenseman, can move the puck, score a bit on the power play, but really a lot of the other guys were not having a much of an impact. So not really a whole lot has left the organization that was really having a big positive impact. Now, looking at the key additions, who have they brought in this offseason? First up, we have Ilya Lyubushkin on defense. Of course, he finished the year in Toronto after being acquired from the Coyotes at the NHL trade deadline. A good physical right-shot defenseman. So we know the Sabres have a pretty good young D-core already with guys like Dahlin and Samuelson and Owen Power jumping into the mix full-time this year. Yokoharu, he'll be a nice addition back there with a little bit more experience and a little bit more of a physical edge to him than some of those other guys have. So I think they'll be a good complement to what they already have going on. They also have Lawrence Pilot coming back, who played over in Europe over last year, so he's returning to the Sabres. Eric Comrie has joined the team as the goaltending. Potential, hard to say how this is going to go, but he and Craig Anderson will be your goalies. Comrie's obviously a lot younger, looking for an opportunity to maybe be a starter. Obviously, I think it's Craig Anderson's job to lose, but Comrie will certainly be in the mix and be there for the year. So he was a pretty good pickup considering what was available. They've also added young defenseman Cale Clegg, who was not qualified from the Montreal Canadiens. Obviously, he's bounced around a bit, going from LA to Montreal, now to Buffalo, looking for a fresh start, looking to get himself established. Of course, another couple of things that they're not really additions, but they did bring back Malcolm Subban and Craig Anderson, who did make it. They made it all the way to free agency, but essentially were re-signed. So they got Craig Anderson, Malcolm Subban, Eric Comrie all in the mix. for the goaltending at the NHL level, not to mention some youngsters, especially one key young goalie, which we'll talk about in the prospect section here coming up. So they're a little bit more deeper in goaltending position. Hopefully they can stay healthy. That was an issue last year. Of course, another big offseason move here was the huge contract signing for Tage Thompson, inking a mega multi-year, big-time, big money contract extension after a big season last year. I know some are questioning it. I know I was a little bit critical of it, that it might be too much too soon. I'd like to see him do it maybe more than 1 year before I commit that much money, that much term, but I guess the Sabres were confident enough he's going to be able to repeat that, and they're obviously wanting to get him locked up before the price continues to rise any higher. But obviously getting Thompson re-upped and bringing back their goaltenders, and then of course the other guys in the mix there. So now let's take a look at some prospects that we feel could actually have a chance to play legitimate, impactful NHL games and have an impact on this team. Like, they do have a lot of talent. Obviously, they already have some good young talent in the lineup, but some guys that I do expect would be like Jack Quinn and Owen Power. I would be quite surprised if they're not on a roster out of training camp. Owen Power, the former #1 overall pick, not only do I expect him to be in a roster, I expect him to be playing top 4 minutes. Jack Quinn, I wouldn't be shocked if he's given an opportunity to play some sort of a top 6 role, or at least a top 9 role for sure. Same goes for JJ Peterka. I do wonder if he'll have an opportunity. I think Quinn will have maybe a slightly better edge than Peterka to get into the roster and line up on an opening night, but I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility of both seeing significant NHL time this year for sure. Of course, their top pick from this year's draft, Matthew Savoie, I'm not sure what the future holds for him. We'll have to see. Obviously, he's at the age where he would have to go back to junior or play in the NHL. There's not going to be an opportunity to kind of go back and forth to the minors like we saw already with other players like Peterka, for example, or even Quinn. So we'll see with Savoie. I wouldn't be shocked if he played a year junior, but then again, you just never know if he has a real good camp. We'll have to wait and see. Some other guys like Isaac Rosen, Yuri Kulich, not sure where their plans are to play those guys, but they could see some limited NHL action, I think, this year. Of course, there's young goalie prospect Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen. I think this is probably his last year of being primarily in the American Hockey League. I think it's a make-or-break season for him. They have the 3 veteran guys in Comrie, Anderson, and Subban. So I don't necessarily think UPL is going to get a lot of playing time at the NHL level unless they run into injuries. But, I think at the same time, he's going to have an opportunity that he'll have to, really make or break and really shine this year and show that he can be the goalie of the future if he's going to be, because there is obviously some good young goaltending talent like a Devin Levi coming up behind him in the not too distant future as well. And Levi's not the only other goalie prospect either. There's more. So, I would suspect that, the Sabres are going to be really wanting him to take some big strides this year. But will he play a lot of NHL games that have an impact? I'm going to say maybe, but not likely. I think Quinn and Power are your main ones, with Peterka getting some games. At least that's my prediction. But they do have some good young talent there that can certainly have an impact on this roster and on this season. Now, the projected roster for me in the forward group moving forward, I suspect we're going to have a top line of Tage Thompson being your top line center. Your top wingers are likely going to be Alex Tuch and Jeff Skinner. I know Tuch played well with Thompson last year. I suspect that'll continue. You also have potential second line of Casey Middlestat, Victor Olofsson, and Peyton Krebs. Of course, your third line right now looks like it could be Cousins, Quinn, and Asplund. And of course, your fourth line could be Okposo, Girgensons, and Bjork. Now, things could change a little bit. These are just basically how the depth chart looks by each position. Doesn't necessarily mean the forward lines are going to be exactly like that. But those are the 12 forwards I'm projecting right now to be on opening night roster. On the back end, you're going to have a combination of Samuelson and Dahlin, Power, Lyubushkin, and Bryson Yokoharu. That's at least the D pairs that I suspect we'll see, with Anderson and Comrie being your top 2 goaltending tandem guys for at least to start the year, barring injury. So really, have they made any significant changes? Not a whole lot. I think right now, like the guys that are out and the guys that are in, there's nothing real crazy. Like, Colin Miller goes out, Ilya comes in, Dell leaves, Comrie comes in, they got Pilot back, Clegg, like there's really nothing, there's no like big deals that were done for the Sabres this offseason. So certainly they're coming back with a lot of the same players. So can you really expect them to be drastically better? I think it's fair to say they should be better just because they have a lot of youth, and that youth is going to continue to develop and continue to progress here. I mean, look at the forward group alone. You have a lot of youth there between Quinn, Cousins, Krebs, for example. Middlestad's still fairly young. Thompson's coming off his first breakout season. And on the blue line, you've got Dahlin, Samuelson, Power, all fairly young. So there's a lot of youth here. So I suspect that these guys can hopefully all continue to improve and take steps forward. But it's certainly, I don't know that they can be drastically better. We've seen some teams in this division, like Detroit and Ottawa, for example, who we'll be previewing next. Those two teams have made big moves this offseason. So I do think the Sabres are probably still going to be near the bottom of the division for another year. But I do think they're going to be a really scary team in a couple of years as all these guys kind of continue to graduate to the NHL and continue to evolve here, because they have a lot of really potent young talent. Now, of course, like I said, the young decor that they can continue to build around is really positive. That's a big plus for them. But like they need guys like Krebs, Cousins, Quinn, Peterka to take more big steps this year if they're really going to stand a chance to really improve. So I still, like I said, I suspect that they're going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to be an improved team. I just don't know that with all the other improvements and strong teams ahead of them in their division, that they can really make any strides in the standings, and they might even slip a spot. That is remotely possible. Like I said, if things go as expected, you could say, in Detroit and Ottawa, who made much more significant offseason moves than the Sabres. But nothing is always on paper as it seems. Teams can be surprises. I do look forward to watching the Sabres play. I think they'll be able to entertain us and give us lots to talk about as these kids continue to get better. So let me know your thoughts on the Buffalo Sabres, what you expect from them this year, and some top questions you feel they need to answer. Can they move up in the standings? Are they at risk to drop down, even though they're probably going to be a better team? This division continues to get stronger every year. So let me know your thoughts, and we'll talk about it in the comments. If you're new to the channel, of course, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis, as well as all the season previews of all the 32 NHL teams from around the league. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.